They told us it was just another recon off. In 1971, deep in the frozen wilderness of Siberia, our Soviet unit was deployed to investigate strange signals near the old Tunguska blast zone. But what we found in that scorched forest was something no man should ever witness. The cold bit through my uniform as I stood at attention. 23 years of service had hardened me against Siberian winters, but something about this particular chill crawled deeper than bone. Captain Volkov, this mission requires absolute discretion. Major Chernov's breath fogged between us in the frost-covered command bunker. His eyes never left the classified folder. The Tunguska anomaly has reactivated. I kept my face neutral. War had taught me that. Afghanistan, then the border conflicts. You survive by trusting facts, not fantasies. Atmospheric readings, sir? Officially, yes. Seismic mapping. Chernov slid photographs across the metal table. Satellite imagery showing strange light formations above the old blast zone. Unofficially, cosmonauts on Salyut 1 reported unusual phenomena. The state needs answers, not rumors. Understood, Comrade Major. I tucked the papers into my jacket. Science would explain whatever was happening. It always did. My squad waited outside, frost clinging to their ushankas. Lieutenant Iskra crossed himself when he thought no one was looking, a believer, despite party doctrine. Corporal Mikhail stood rigid, eyes forward, the perfect Soviet soldier who trusted only what could be measured. Then there was Sergeant Buranov, fidgeting with his collar, eyes darting between shadows that weren't there. A good soldier once, before his mind fractured. 4 days in, 3 days out, I told them. Standard atmospheric readings, nothing more. The helicopter blades chopped through morning air as we lifted over endless pine forest. No one spoke. The drop-off left us in a clearing, the sound of retreat fading until there was nothing but the vast Siberian wilderness pressing in from all sides. I lit a cigarette, watching the smoke dissolve into gray sky. The emptiness felt expectant, waiting. Ghost stories and frozen dirt, I muttered, crushing the ember under my boot. That's all this is. None of my men looked convinced. We marched single file through forest that didn't look right. I'd seen plenty of Siberian taiga, but these trees seemed wrong. They bent inward over the trail, trunks twisted as if pushed by some massive force long ago. Their branches reached toward us, rather than the sun. Captain, Buranov had stopped, head tilted, like a dog hearing a whistle. Listen. The forest had gone silent. No birds, no insects. Just whined through branches that sounded almost like whispers. Natasha? Buranov's face went pale. He turned in circles. I heard her. My daughter. She's calling me. Mikhail spat into the snow. Your daughter is in Leningrad, old man. 800 kilometers away. I know my Natasha's voice, Buranov insisted, his hands trembling. I pulled him back into formation. The cold plays tricks. Keep moving. That night, huddled around the radio for the scheduled check-in, something broke through our transmission. A woman's voice, crackling through decades of static. Expedition 17 requesting immediate extraction. The sky is... then nothing but a high-pitched whine. That's impossible, I said, checking the dial. That's a 1950s frequency. Nobody's used that band in 20 years. Before anyone could respond, something crashed through the underbrush. We grabbed our rifles, but lowered them at the sight of a fox stumbling into camp. Its fur was partially burned away, eyes milky white. It sniffed the air in our direction, despite its blindness, then vanished back into darkness. I pretended to sleep that night, listening to Buranov whisper conversations with people who weren't there. When I finally dozed off, the dreams were filled with white-hot light, and strangers calling my name. I woke suddenly before dawn. Something felt wrong. In the dim pre-morning glow, I realized every tree surrounding our camp had shifted position overnight, all of them now facing inward, toward us. No one else seemed to notice. I said nothing. The meteorological equipment shrieked to life on our second day. Needles buried themselves against their gauges, readings spiking beyond possible ranges. I tapped the barometer, certain it was malfunctioning. "Storm coming," Mikhail said, pointing skyward. Dark clouds had gathered with unnatural speed, churning directly above us. The air crackled with electricity, raising the hairs on my arms. Lightning forked across the sky, but something was wrong. "I don't hear thunder," I said, the silence more unnerving than any sound could be. The first bolt struck close enough that I tasted metal. The flash blinded us momentarily, but as my vision cleared, I saw something impossible. Suspended within the lightning storm, humanoid silhouettes floated, blue-white figures hanging motionless amid the electrical discharge. Dear God. Iskra dropped to his knees in the snow, whispering what sounded like an old Orthodox prayer. His eyes never left the sky. "It's atmospheric electricity," I insisted, though my mouth had gone dry. "Aurora effects. Nothing supernatural." Mikhail nodded too quickly, clinging to my explanation like a drowning man to driftwood. I turned to call Buranov, only to find him sitting cross-legged, methodically carving something into his forearm with his combat knife. Blood beaded along strange geometric patterns. "What the hell are you doing?" I grabbed his wrist. "They see through skin," he whispered, eyes reflecting the white lightning. "They can't see you if you mark yourself." Old Siberian hunters knew this, the burning ones from the sky. I slapped the knife from his hand. "Enough." Finding Iskra still on his knees, I yanked him upright. "Cut the madness, both of you. We're scientists, soldiers, not peasants frightened by weather." But my voice betrayed me, cracking on the final word. Sweat soaked my back despite the cold. I felt watched, measured, catalogued by something vast and patient above us. When I glanced up again, the figures in the lightning were gone. Mikhail should have been back an hour ago. I checked my watch again, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. Radio check every 30 minutes. Those were the orders. I'd sent him on a scouting sweep at dawn, standard procedure. Now the sun hung low, and still no sign of him. "We'll find him," I assured the others, though something in me already knew. We followed his boot prints through fresh snow, calling his name. The trail led to a small clearing, and then, nothing. His tracks simply ended. "Captain." Iskra's voice was hollow. He pointed to the ground. Where the footprints ended lay Mikhail's standard-issue boots, charred and smoking, perfectly placed as if he'd been standing there one moment and lifted away the next. The snow around them had melted in a perfect circle. "Animals," I said weakly. He took his boots off, and even I couldn't finish such an absurd explanation. My compass spun wildly when I tried to get our bearings. Above us, the northern lights had appeared, despite it being hours before nightfall. They formed patterns I'd never seen before, geometric shapes, almost like writing. "This is a natural geomagnetic anomaly," I insisted, voice rising. "That's why we're here, to study it. That's all." Neither man answered me. Buranov had begun walking, not back toward camp, but deeper into the forest. "Where are you going?" I called after him. "Following the burning ones," he replied without turning. "They're showing us the way." I should have stopped him, should have ordered a retreat right then. But something, curiosity, duty, or fear of what command would say if we returned empty-handed, made me follow. That night, I saw him, a small boy standing between distant trees, his body glowing with faint white light. My brother Alexei, killed in 1943 outside Stalingrad. He was exactly as I remembered, 10 years old, wearing the too large coat I'd given him before leaving for the front. "You're not real," I whispered, but he smiled at me, just as he had when we were children. "Run before the sky sees you," he said, in a voice both his and not his. Then he faded into the darkness, leaving only the scent of burned matches behind. "There shouldn't be any structures out here," I said, staring at the rusted radio tower that had appeared through the trees. Soviet construction, decades old, stretching improbably high into the mist. Our own radio crackled to life without being touched. A man's voice, distorted but clear enough. "Containment failure at sectors 7 through 12. The light entities have broken perimeter. Repeat, Skyfire protocol is now in effect. All personnel..." The message looped, started again from the beginning. Buranov nodded as if hearing confirmation of something long suspected. "Been broadcasting since 1957. Heard it in my dreams." "How could you possibly know that?" I demanded. But I already knew the answer when we forced open the rusted door at the tower's base. The bunker below was frozen in time. Papers scattered, as if the occupants had left in a hurry. Maps of the region covered one wall, pinned with coordinates, and photographs, dozens of them showing the same white silhouettes we'd seen in the lightning storm. The date stamps read, March-June 1957. Iskra lifted a journal, flipping through yellowed pages. They called them sky spirits bound by flame, souls caught between worlds after the Great Impact. "Superstitious nonsense," I snapped, though the evidence surrounded us. When Iskra continued muttering about ancient spirits, something in me broke. My fist connected with his jaw before I realized I'd swung. He looked at me with pity rather than anger, wiping blood from his lip. "You've seen them too, Captain. Your brother. I saw you talking to him last night." I grabbed his collar. "You know nothing about my brother." "Captain," Buranov called from outside. "Look." Through the doorway, a pale blue light drifted between distant trees, vaguely human-shaped, floating a meter above the ground. "Beautiful," Buranov whispered. Before I could stop him, he walked toward it, entranced. "Buranov, get back here," I shouted. The light pulsed once. There was a flash like a camera bulb going off, and Buranov was simply gone. No trace remained. Iskra and I stood alone in sudden darkness. My heart hammered against my ribs as sweat froze on my skin. When I turned back to the maps, I saw something impossible. My own reflection in a darkened window, but not as I was now. Older, burned, eyes glowing faintly white. It whispered, "They've always been here, since the fire fell from the sky. We need to leave. Now." I grabbed our remaining gear, shoving it into my pack with shaking hands. "They won't let us," Iskra said calmly, too calmly. "No one leaves the zone once they've been seen." I was about to argue when the air split open. There's no other way to describe it. Reality itself seemed to tear like wet paper, revealing something behind the world. Light poured through the gap, not warm sunlight, but something cold and ancient. They emerged from this breach, the light beasts. Now I could see them clearly. Humanoid forms made of pulsing energy, their bodies shifting between states of matter, plasma and memory given life. They moved with terrible grace, drifting above the ground. "Cover your ears," I warned Iskra, but too late. The voices started, hundreds of them, layered atop each other. I heard my mother, dead 15 years, my commanding officer from Afghanistan, the children from that village near the border, all speaking at once, using words I'd heard them say in life. One by one, I watched my squad materialize around us. Mikhail, Buranov, and others who hadn't even come on this mission, all melting into patterns of blue-white light. Iskra fell to his knees, reaching toward the nearest entity. His face showed rapture, not fear. "They've come to cleanse us," he whispered, "to burn away our sins." "Iskra, don't." The light beast touched him with elongated fingers. Iskra's body convulsed once before dissolving into motes of light that scattered like embers. Alone now, I ran blindly through the forest. The voices of the dead pursued me, calling my name in a terrible chorus. I stumbled into a clearing and found another bunker. This one sealed with heavy locks bearing military insignia I didn't recognize. Desperate, I shot the lock off and heaved the door open. Inside were weapons, not ordinary firearms, but strange devices labeled with warnings and technical specifications beyond anything I'd seen. The words psychic containment and dimensional anomaly appeared repeatedly in the documents scattered around them. A Cold War project, weapons designed for enemies that weren't human. The radio on the wall clicked on. My own voice spoke through it, though my mouth remained closed. "End it before they learn to leave." The bunker's emergency lights bathed everything in red as I studied the weapon system before me. Not a bomb in the conventional sense. The schematics described it as a dimensional stabilizer meant to seal breaches in reality. The Skyfire protocol. My hands moved as if belonging to someone else, inputting the activation sequence from a laminated card. The console hummed to life, dust shaking free from decades of disuse. "This wasn't supposed to be here," I whispered to the empty room. "None of this was supposed to be real." Outside, the light beasts had gathered, dozens of them now, their glow visible through the bunker's small windows. They'd stopped moving, all facing my direction, waiting. The detonation timer gave me 30 minutes, enough time to reach minimum safe distance according to the manual. But something told me there was no safe distance from what was coming. I stepped outside with the remote trigger clutched in my trembling hand. The cold air crystallized my breath, but I barely felt it now. The light beasts parted as I walked, creating a corridor leading deeper into the forest, toward the center of the old Tunguska blast zone. They spoke as I passed, each in a different voice. Some I recognized, most I didn't. Languages layered upon languages, fractured and reassembled, return to the point of impact. The cycle repeats. The fire remembers you. The path ended at a depression in the earth, a crater long overgrown but still visible. At its center stood a boy glowing white-blue against the darkness. Alexei, my brother. "Do you remember how you died?" he asked, his voice echoing strangely. "You died," I corrected, tears freezing on my cheeks. "Not me. You died at Stalingrad while I was away fighting." He smiled sadly. "That's not what happened." Memory crashed over me. Not the past I'd built my life around, but something else. A bright light in the sky. A research team sent to investigate. 1908, not 1971. My brother calling to me as something tore through the atmosphere above us. "No," I gasped. "That's not possible. I wasn't even born then." "Time moves differently for them," Alexei said, gesturing to the light beasts now surrounding the crater. "They've been trying to reach you again for decades, to finish what began." I clutched the detonator, understanding flooding through me. We hadn't been sent to study the anomaly. We'd been sent to end it, just as others had been sent before. An endless cycle of containment. The light beasts drew closer, their forms fluctuating wildly now. They reached for me with elongated limbs as the air around us began to tear open again. With shaking hands, I pulled out my field journal and scribbled a final entry. "They burn memory. They are light and ash and grief. They're not invaders. They're reflections. What's left when a human soul burns too bright to remain intact, trapped between states since the first impact. I'm sorry, Alexei. I'm bringing you home. I pressed the detonator. Light consumed everything. Not the cold light of the entities, but something cleaner, purer. When it faded, there was only silence. Scorched earth, warped trees bent outward in a perfect circle, and in the center, nothing. Classified, level Omega. Internal memorandum, Tunguska. Incident 1971. Date, March 17, 1972. Analysis of recovered materials from Razvedka, 9 mission complete. Camera footage salvaged from Captain Leonid Volkov's equipment shows clear evidence of atmospheric anomalies, consistent with the 1908 and 1957 events. Field log entries become increasingly erratic after day 2, suggesting psychological effects similar to previous expeditions. Presumption of KIA status for all team members confirmed. Recovery teams found no human remains, only equipment. Captain Volkov's body was not recovered despite extensive search efforts. Radiation levels at detonation site exceed normal background by factor of 17. More concerning are the biological changes observed in local fauna. Birds with extra eyes, foxes with luminescent fur. Tissue samples show DNA restructuring at cellular level. Recommendation: permanent research station impossible. Even short-term exposure producing chromosomal damage in researchers. Handwritten note from Major Chernov. Initiate long-term blackout. Reinforce the exclusion perimeter. This makes the third failure in containment. Whatever was sealed there in 1908 is strengthening. The longer we study it, the more it studies us. Volkov knew the risks. They all did. Document ends. Luna Orbital Platform, February 12, 2025. These cold cases are fascinating, cosmonaut Sorokina commented, scrolling through the digitized files. The historical AI project was meant to catalog forgotten Soviet-era research, but she'd found herself captivated by the Tunguska mystery. Look at this, she said to her colleague. They sent team after team into the zone for decades, and everyone disappeared. The satellite feed of the old blast site displayed on her monitor, a real-time view of the vast Siberian emptiness. Modern scans showed the forest had regrown, though in an unnaturally perfect circle. Wait, she said, zooming in on a point at the precise center of the anomaly. There's someone there. The image enhanced, revealing a lone figure standing motionless in the crater. Military uniform, Soviet era. The facial recognition software matched against their historical database. Captain Leonid Volkov, the system identified. Missing in action, 1971. That's impossible, her colleague said, leaning closer. He'd be over 100 years old. But the figure in the image hadn't aged a day since his personnel photo. And as they watched, he turned his head upward, looking directly at their satellite, as if he could see them observing him. His eyes glowed faintly white against his pale face. The lights in the station flickered, and static filled their communications channel. A voice, clear despite the interference, spoke through their system. Do you remember how you died? The transmission cut to black. When it returned, the figure was gone, but the lights continued to flicker, growing brighter with each pulse.